Hey guys, welcome back to this episode of Boost Brothers Garage, where we talk about our options for what we're going to do with the Cayman.
Good boy.
Stay tuned.
Before we get started on our options, I want to cover one quick thing, and that is the fact that we just hit 500 subscribers. Cheers.
Toast to B is for Build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
B is for Build would appreciate our beer drinking right now. Anyway, we greatly appreciate it, guys. I remember when Zach moved to Cincinnati, and we both got our P cars, and we were trying to figure out, what we could do to kind of, get more out of our passion. And we talked about starting a YouTube channel, and we've had a lot of fun so far. We really appreciate you guys following along. And yeah, so for 500 subscribers celebration, the first 5 subscribers
Buy me a new engine.
No, not that. The first 5 subscribers that comment down below, we'll go ahead and send you some of our decals. They're not worth anything, but we like them.
They're cool, yeah.
They're cool.
Yeah.
So we'll send them to you for free. On to our options. The reason you're probably watching this video in the first place.
Yeah, so we've had about 2 weeks to kind of weigh the different options that we have. We've had a lot of feedback from you guys, which we appreciate all of that. There's definitely the dedicated people that want us to keep the Porsche motor in the car. There's some guys that just would like to see us do an LS swap. And then there's the ones that are in the middle that really have no preference.
Yeah, and I mean, part of the reason we're having this discussion right now is because there are also those guys out there that are commenting and saying, this happened to me, or I blew my engine because of IMS failure, or whatever. And
more than I would have ever imagined.
Absolutely.
M97 engines, like, we've learned so much about them in the past 2 weeks, it's incredible.
About why they kind of suck.
Yeah.
So anyway, we thought, let's go over what the possibilities are. If you run into this, which we believe we have a spun rod bearing, you run into a spun rod bearing, what exactly can you do? And yeah, we came up with 4 legitimate options.
4.
So the first option, and one that we're still strongly considering, is us pulling the engine, ripping it apart, and seeing if we can put it back together. We believe it's just a spun rod bearing. I don't know how much damage the crankshaft would have. We'd have to take a look at that. But that's an option.
Yeah, and honestly, we've had, such great feedback from our videos. Jake Ravy, who I'm sure most of you are familiar with.
Flat 6 Innovations.
Yeah, kind of reinvented the 3.4, 3.6. Has reached out to us and offered a lot of advice. Also offered us to come down to his engine building, flat 6 engine building class in November, which is such a great opportunity. But ultimately just given a lot of solid advice and been really helpful through the process. So that's one thing that makes us lean more towards that side.
The issue with rebuilding the factory engine, and this is probably the most cost effective, it is 100% the most cost effective option of everything we're talking about. My issue with this, and granted that only matters so much because it's Zach's car, but my issue is we pull it out, we fix the spun rod bearing, and we put it back together and we throw an AccuSump on it, or
oil issue. Drink.
We throw an AccuSump on it.
Oil issue. Drink.
We throw that thing I was just talking about on it, or we replace the sump with an X51 oil issue.
Drink.
Anyway, my issue is I'm worried that we do all this work, we spend the money, we put it back in, and then we have the exact same issue 10,000 miles down the road. And that scares the shit out of me, to be honest with you. This is something we never expected to happen.
Let's be realistic as well. Like, you guys have seen the way that I drive the car. And given maybe that's the reason that we're in the situation we're in, but that's not going to change. Like, that's why I bought the car that I bought. Like, that's the way that I drive. Like, that's why that car was built. So I want to do whatever needs to be done to ensure that I can drive that car that way, because
At the autocross, on the track,
exactly. I mean,
bulletproof.
that's where the enjoyment is. So
Right.
that's a big part of our decision making right now.
All right, so option 2 is you go with a rebuilt motor from a reputable source like
Vision
or Flat Six Innovations.
Who also, Dwayne has been great.
Right. So in looking at those options, they are very pricey. A 3.4 rebuild, which is factory displacement, you're looking at $13,000 for a base rebuild. You're looking at, what do we got here? Another $3,500 to include an upgraded IMS, upgraded oiling issues.
$6K for the core charge, and we just start subtracting off of that once they get into the motor and figure out what we actually did to it. So
Any parts that aren't usable, they start subtracting from that $6,000.
yeah,
So-
oil issues, anything like that.
Right. So basically, we're looking at best case scenario, $16,500 if we get the full $6,000 for the core.
And let's keep in mind, this whole time, that is out of pocket. Like, that is
Cash.
Cash out of pocket. 16.
16.5.
Best case scenario. Right.
Probably plus shipping, plus our time and labor of pulling the engine and reinstalling, and et cetera, et cetera. Also keep in mind that he only paid $21,000 for the car, and we're sitting here talking about a $16,000, $17,000 engine replacement.
Where I think that $21,000 for the car is going to come into play later when we talk, so just keep that in mind. But Jake Raby, like I mentioned earlier, has offered us the ability to come and learn how to build these motors. So I think that $16,000 mark could be lower based on us learning the engine and rebuilding.
That's fair.
But you're still coming out of pocket for every expense that comes in the motor. And I mean, the crankshaft alone for a new used crankshaft is like $4,000.
$4,000. So the next option is a 3.8. So you're upgrading the displacement. That is a base of $19,000. Plus your $3,500 for the upgraded IMS, your sump, all of that stuff, and and still your $6,000 core charge. So you're looking at $22,500 there, more than we paid for the car to go with a 3.8 rebuild.
Which everybody, of course, wants to go 3.8, but it's not feasible, for us at least, and I would assume most of you.
We can't swing that.
So we're going to move on to the last option, which is what we've discussed.
Two more options.
Two more. Okay.
The next option is getting a used motor,
Okay.
which we had a subscriber tell us that they found a used 997 Carrera engine for $10,000.
$9,000 actually, but
Again, $10,000
yeah.
out of pocket. There's still some modifications you have to make that engine work.
Final option is LS swap, right? And I'm going to tell you that we've done about as much research as you could possibly do on this, and
At first glance, it sounds like the only option.
exactly.
Once we did our research on this, we found out, all right, so the base kit is $3,900, right?
And
Just the swap kit. And then you
you have
have
to add in power steering, which is like another
$1,200.
$1,200, and then if you add in all the bracketry for like alternator, AC, etc., you're like another what, $2,900?
yeah, so
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's $7,100 for the swap kit. And after doing the research, that doesn't include motor mounts.
and transmission mounts and
All sorts
a
of
lot of stuff. So I'm sure there's a bunch of you out there that have seen the same exact thing.
We're not going to name that manufacturer because we've seen some bad press. We don't want to spread that.
We don't know that for
use
sure.
it.
Yeah.
Right. We may still use it and figure it out for ourselves.
Yeah.
But on top of that $7,100, you still have to have an LS motor, which you can get a nice pull-out C5 Corvette motor for around $2,500.
And then we could do LS3 crate, which is about 7,800.
Right. So you're looking at again $17,000 when it's all
so
said
they're
and
all
done.
kind of relative when you look at the price. But the big difference is, and this is what I want you to keep in mind, with the LS swap, we get to sell the core motor. We get to sell the motor now. And
$8,000.
you know, before they start subtracting what's wrong with it, $8,000. So that's a big jump into the direction of where we want to go.
Right.
So we need to keep that in mind.
So that's where we're going next. Zach still owes a lot of money on the car. Hasn't had it that long, right? And it was $21,000 he took out a loan. We're weary of diving into a major project like an LS swap on the car when he doesn't own it outright.
Well, I'm gonna be honest, not weary. Like, I feel like I need to do it for the channel to keep the momentum going, but I also feel like the best decision is to gut the car,
It's going to be a track car.
sell everything,
Moving forward, it's gonna
because
be a
that's
track
what
car.
we want to do long term, and try to get as much out of it as I possibly can. I want to try to pay it off by gutting it, and then be able to move forward, kind of in the same way the 944 is going.
Right.
But you know,
Full
not
build,
have a
cage.
lien on the car.
Right, full build. We'll do cage, carbon fiber or aluminum door panels. We'll get rid of the factory seats, all the factory interior. We'll sell the factory wiring harness. Get rid of the immobilizer. We'll rewire the car. We'll start from scratch.
Race pack, AM, like full engine
full
management.
build.
Like, it's gonna take a while, and that's what we kind of want to talk to you guys about. You know, he's been building his car, and it's a work in progress, obviously.
And we've had the Cayman for just bolt-on mods and still being able to do the autocross and stuff. And if we dive into a full build on that, then
We're gonna lose the drivability portion of our channel, which, you know, like, honestly, at this point in time, we kind of feel like is the best option.
we want to know what you think. We value you guys watching us. We value your opinion. We know what we want to do. We want to gut the car. We want to see how much we can get out of the engine, the interior, the electronics, the HVAC, everything that's not going to be used moving forward. And we want to see if we can pay the car off. And if we can do that, then we can start with the cage. We can start with the full track build, doing exactly what we want. It's going to be a lengthy process, but ultimately we'll end up with the car that he wants and that I want.
And I'll also add in, like, I don't know, I'm going to be honest, like, I don't know what classification of racing that car, if we do the LS build, would fit into.
Autocross and DE.
DE, right? So if any of you know any different, then please let us know. And I'm not against any kind of suggestion, but going forward, if we're going to do a full build, I would like to know ahead of time that I'm building the car and the spec that, you know, I'd like to have it long term. So
Right.
that's where we're kind of leaning on you guys to kind of guide us in the right direction.
So that's it, guys. Those are our options. We are leaning towards gutting the car, selling everything we can, including the engine as a core, trying to pay the car off, and then moving forward with a domestic V8 swap, an LS, or potentially a Coyote motor, but that's a whole nother story that we'll get into later.
Yeah.
So tell us what you think. What do you want to see? Do you want us to try to rebuild that engine ourselves? Do you want us to follow what we're kind of thinking and see if, hey, if your Cayman blows up, can you sell the core and sell the interior bits and make a track car and pay the car off so you own it free and clear? And yeah, we will absolutely take that into account into what we decide to do.
Yeah, guys. Hey, if it was up to me, I'd keep a P motor in it no matter what. I'm not going after an LS swap because of the horsepower. I want you to know that up front.
But we
when
want
you're
bulletproof. And
I want bulletproof, and I also don't want to dive into a very expensive build while I still owe money on the car.
We don't always make the best decisions.
I make bad decisions daily.
All the time.
Yeah. Oil mods.
Alright guys, so that's that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for
500 subscribers.
Absolutely, we really appreciate it.
Yep.
We'll get those decals sent out to the first 5 subscribed commenters. You guys can put them on your toolbox, your car. You can light them on fire. You can do whatever you want. But you know, we just want to do something to thank you guys. So
Yeah, honestly, guys, the biggest part is like actually seeing you guys comment down there and interacting with us. Like, it means the world. Like, I don't know. It's just, I appreciate all the feedback we got. It's made a huge difference in the decision process that we've had, and we can't thank you enough.
next week's video is going to be one of 2 things. I'm going to Chicago this weekend, and I may stop by the Autocross event at Tire Rack, where my buddy Widerstandsfahig will have his ridiculous Widebody 944.
If you haven't checked them out, we're going to post his information in the link below. Make sure you do, because it is
Some crazy
ridiculous.
944s. So it's either going to be that, or we're going to start building the rotisserie for the 944. And yeah, either way, we'll see you guys next week. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
Stallone, say bye.
Say bye.
Oof.